I wasn't looking for anything. That's the part one keeps circling back to, even now. I wasn't on a mission. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't digging through drawers or checking her phone like some desperate, jealous husband. I was just cleaning up the kitchen on a slow Sunday morning while the coffee brewed and the dog snored under the table. I remember the weather. Gray light slanting through the windows, the kind of morning that makes everything feel soft and harmless. I had the radio playing low, flipping through junk mail and receipts we both usually ignored. That's when I saw it. A folded piece of white paper, barely noticeable, half-tucked beneath a stack of takeout menus and grocery lists. It was a restaurant receipt, no big deal, but the name caught my eye. Place in Savannah. Now, I've got nothing against Savannah. We'd driven through it once on our way to Hilton Head, grabbed gas and snacks, but we'd never actually eaten there. Not together. And certainly not at some upscale place with imported wine and a $160 dinner total. I unfolded the slip and read through the items. Shrimp scampi, filet mignon, creme brulee, 2 glasses of Cabernet. Dinner for 2. The date stamped at the top, Thursday night, 7:18 p.m. My stomach turned just a little. Thursday night was the evening Emma had told me she'd be stuck late in a strategy meeting. I remember that because we'd made plans, frozen pizza, bad Netflix, the usual. But she texted that afternoon. Ugh, work stuff popped up. Client meeting in Charleston. Might be home late. Sorry, babe. Charleston is 2 hours away in the opposite direction. And this place, the Mariner's Table, wasn't in Charleston. It was in Savannah. And she hadn't mentioned anything about a last-minute change or a dinner that expensive. And definitely not one that included wine. She hadn't mentioned any of it. I tried to laugh it off. Maybe it was a work dinner. Maybe someone else paid and she grabbed the receipt by mistake. Maybe there was a good reason she didn't tell me. But the truth is, even in that moment I already knew. I just didn't want to believe it. Still holding the receipt, I turned toward the sink and caught something else. A wine glass sitting beside the drying rack. Just one. And it wasn't hers either, not the type she usually used. We had a pair of stemless glasses she liked for wine. But this one was from the cabinet we rarely touched, the nicer ones. What really stood out, though, was the lipstick mark near the rim. A deep, almost Berg asterisk NDY shade. Emma used to wear that color all the time. Redwood Kiss. I remembered the name because she used to joke it left stains on everything, even coffee cups. But she hadn't worn it in at least a month. Lately, she'd switched to lighter tones. I'd noticed. I always noticed. So why now? That was when my pulse started to pick up. I just stood there, holding the receipt in one hand and staring at the glass, my brain spinning in slow, heavy circles. I don't know how long I stood like that before I heard her footsteps upstairs. The creak of the floorboards, the sound of her drawer closing. She was up. Normal Sunday morning routine. She came downstairs in pajama pants and one of my hoodies, her hair still damp from the shower. She looked soft, casual, like nothing was wrong in the world. Humming even. She kissed me on the cheek and started rummaging through the cabinets for cereal. Hey, I said, keeping my voice easy. Did you go to Savannah on Thursday? She paused, blinked, then reached for the box of granola. Oh, yeah, actually, she said, as if she just remembered. It was last minute. Client changed the meeting location last second. Total mess. She poured cereal into a bowl and added, without missing a beat, "Why?" I held up the receipt. She took one glance and gave me a little smile. Not nervous, not apologetic. Just mildly amused. Oh, yeah. Business dinner. Client insisted on that place. Pretty good food, honestly. You'd like it. She said it so calmly, so casually, that for a moment I wondered if I was the one being ridiculous. Then she turned to me, that smile still hanging in the air, and said, "Are you jealous over a receipt, Mark?" Her tone was light, like she was teasing, but underneath it, I felt something colder. Not angry, not defensive, just too smooth. I tried to play along. Just surprised. Thought you were in Charleston that night. Yeah, I was supposed to be, but everything changed at the last minute. You know how it is with clients. She leaned back against the counter and started eating her cereal like we were talking about the weather. Seriously, babe, don't go all detective on me. I nodded, trying not to let my thoughts show. Right? Just caught me off guard. She smiled again, walked over, and pecked me on the forehead. Then don't let it, she said, almost playfully. Then she turned the conversation toward laundry, groceries, and what we needed to do before her trip next week. Like nothing at all had happened. But something had. Something I couldn't name yet. A crack that hadn't been there before. A silence behind her voice that felt unfamiliar. I wanted to forget it. God, I wanted to just drop it and go back to our Sunday. We had plans to go to the farmer's market. She had been talking about buying fresh lavender and maybe getting that weird beet juice she liked. But for the rest of the morning, my mind kept drifting. Back to the receipt. To the wine glass. To the lipstick. To the way she didn't hesitate, not even for a second, when I asked about Savannah. The confidence in her tone. Too smooth. She didn't ask why I had the receipt. Didn't seem surprised to see it. Didn't even question how it ended up in our kitchen. Just deflected. Shifted. It's strange how something as small as a piece of paper can shift your world. Not in a dramatic, explosive way, but in a quiet, slow unraveling. Like pulling a single thread and watching the whole thing loosen, one stitch at a time. The rest of the day, I tried to act normal. We went to the market, bought bread, apples, some local honey. She laughed at a toddler throwing carrots, held my hand while picking basil. To anyone watching, we probably looked fine. Perfect, even. I smiled. I laughed when she laughed. But the thread had already been pulled. Later that night, while she scrolled on her phone next to me in bed, I stared at the ceiling, wondering why I couldn't stop picturing that glass, that receipt, that damn lipstick. And I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit before. There was space between us now. Not physical, not visible, just air. Heavy, wary, almost foreign. A kind of quiet that wasn't comfortable anymore. Like something unsaid had taken root between us. And it wasn't going away. After the receipt, something changed in me. I wish I could say I shrugged it off, gave her the benefit of the doubt, moved on. But that would be a lie. The moment she dismissed my question with that perfectly measured smile, a new voice settled in my head. Small at first, almost a whisper, but growing. I tried to ignore it. I told myself she was telling the truth. That the client changed the meeting, that the lipstick on the glass was old, that I was just being paranoid. But once that voice moved in, it started unpacking memories. And suddenly, things I never gave a second thought to came back sharp and strange. Like the perfume. 3 weeks before the receipt, Emma came home smelling different. Not unpleasant. In fact, it was nice. Subtle. Floral with something woodsy underneath. I asked about it, and she smiled and said, "Oh, that? Just a little gift from a colleague. One of the women in marketing brought back samples from Paris." Paris. Colleague. Women in marketing. I didn't even question it then. Why would I? But now the memory felt rehearsed. The way she said it, not quite off but memorized. Like she had the answer ready before I even asked. Or the GPS thing. We'd both installed this shared app years ago. Not for surveillance or anything weird, just because it helped with timing when we'd meet up after work, or track each other during road trips. We used to joke about how boring we were because we never turned it off. It was just background noise. Until it wasn't. 2 weeks ago, she texted me that she was headed home late from an offsite. When I checked the GPS, out of pure habit, her location showed no signal. I refreshed. Still nothing. Thought maybe her battery died. But when she walked in 2 hours later, her phone was at 78%. Fully charged. Screen lit up when she tossed it on the counter. The app just stopped working. For those exact 2 hours. That was the first time I felt something close to fear. Not the kind that grabs you by the throat, but the kind that lives in your chest. A low ache, a question without an answer. And then there was her phone. Emma used to leave it everywhere. On the coffee table, kitchen counter, bathroom sink. She never cared who saw her messages. We used to joke that if I ever needed her unlock code, it was our anniversary because she never remembered it. That's how open things were. Now, Her phone was glued to her. If she walked into a room, the screen went face down. If it buzzed, she silenced it without looking. She started charging it in her office at night instead of beside the bed. And once, when I picked it up to hand it to her, she flinched. Just a little, but I noticed. And then, the handwriting. God, this one sounds crazy even to me. But I started noticing the little notes she'd leave on the fridge. Pick up dog food. Call vet. Dinner with Lucy Thursday. Same notes she always left, but now they looked off, crooked, uneven, like someone trying to imitate her handwriting but not quite getting it right. The loops were tighter. The spacing was weird. I told myself I was imagining things, that I was reading too much into it, that my mind was pulling at strings that weren't there. But I couldn't stop pulling. I didn't confront her. I didn't yell. I didn't snoop, not really. I just started paying attention. Quietly, methodically, I began keeping notes on my phone. Just small things. A shift in tone. A missed meeting. A change in schedule. I told myself I wasn't being obsessive, just prepared. Because whatever this was, I needed to be ready. One night, I tried something different. I asked her how things were going at work. Nothing specific, just casual. Her answer? Robotic. Busy. A lot of moving parts. New project timelines. Anything I can help with? I asked. She smiled and shook her head. You wouldn't find it interesting. That was new. Emma always shared everything. She used to talk my ear off about her projects, even the boring ones. Names I didn't know, slides she was nervous about, clients that annoyed her. Now it was all vague, safe, scripted. A few days later, I asked about a colleague I remembered her mentioning months ago. Some guy named Brian who used to make her laugh with stupid memes during team meetings. I just said, "Hey, how's Brian doing? You haven't mentioned him lately." She blinked. "Brian? Yeah, from your team." "Oh." "He moved to another department." Her voice was flat, dismissive. Then she changed the subject. And that was becoming her favorite move, the pivot. Anytime I got too close to something real, she'd rear out the conversation. Ask me about groceries. Bring up the bills. Complain about her sister. It became a dance, and I started to recognize the rhythm. One morning, she said she was going to the office early, had a breakfast meeting with upper management. I nodded, kissed her goodbye, and watched from the window as she pulled out of the driveway. 10 minutes later, I opened her laptop. Felt wrong. I hated it. But I also couldn't shake the need to know. She'd left it on. No password. I opened her calendar. There was no meeting that morning. No breakfast, no invite, no upper management. Just a blank space. My stomach dropped. Not because she lied. I already suspected that. But because of how easily she did it. Like it was second nature now. That night, I said nothing. She came home late, said traffic was a nightmare. I nodded, asked how the meeting went. She gave a vague answer about project alignment and then went straight to bed. And I just sat there in the living room, staring at the blank TV screen, feeling like a ghost in my own house. A few days later, something strange happened. I came home from work early. She wasn't expecting me. I told her I had a client call that would run late, but it was canceled last minute. When I walked in, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Her car was in the driveway. But there was no sound, no music, no TV, no movement. I called her name. No answer. I walked upstairs slowly, feeling my heartbeat in my ears. Her office door was closed. I knocked. After a pause, she opened it, startled, wide-eyed. "Mark," she said, breathless. "I thought you were working late." "I was," I said. "Meeting got canceled." She nodded, stepping aside. "I was just on a call. Sorry, didn't hear you." Her laptop was closed. The desk was spotless. Her phone buzzed twice. Both times, she silenced it without checking. I stood there, saying nothing. That night, when I finally went to bed, she was already asleep, or pretending to be. I lay there staring at the ceiling, that same voice whispering again. "It's happening. You know it is." But still, no proof. Nothing I could hold in my hands. Just shadows, fragments, discrepancies. So I kept waiting. waiting for the moment the truth would stop hiding. Because sooner or later I knew it would. It happened on a Wednesday, a day that started like any other. There was nothing special about it. No anniversary, no fight, no lingering suspicion more than usual. Just a normal morning. I left for work, kissed her on the cheek, told her I'd be late because of a client presentation. She smiled, sipped her coffee, and said, "Good luck, knock it out." But around 2:30 p.m. the power went out in our office building. Presentation canceled, everyone sent home. I grabbed my jacket, half considering calling Emma to grab dinner. Maybe reconnect, try to fix something. Instead, I drove straight home. I wasn't trying to catch her in anything. I just wanted to surprise her. Maybe cook something together, open a bottle of wine like we used to. That was the plan. Until I pulled into the driveway. Her car was already there. That was the first red flag. She told me she had a full day of back-to-back meetings at the downtown office. No remote work. No flexibility. Yet there it was, sitting calmly under the oak tree, like it belonged there. I parked quietly and sat in my car for a few minutes, trying to calm the sudden unease crawling up my spine. The house looked peaceful. No lights on downstairs. No movement in the windows. I told myself not to jump to conclusions. Maybe she was sick. Maybe her meetings got canceled. Maybe she just wanted a nap. But when I stepped inside, the silence hit me like a wall. No TV. No music. No Emma. Just that eerie stillness that makes your skin crawl, even when you're standing in your own home. I called her name once. No answer. I walked further in, shoes quiet against the hardwood. The kitchen was spotless. No sign of lunch, no coffee mug in the sink, nothing out of place. But then I noticed the wine bottle on the counter. Half full. 2 glasses beside it. Both used. My heart started pounding. Not racing, not yet. Just heavier, like it had suddenly remembered how much it weighed. I walked toward the stairs. That's when I saw it. The faintest trail of something damp near the edge of the hallway rug. Barely noticeable unless you were really looking. Like someone had walked through too quickly to clean up. I followed it. Upstairs, the bedroom door was shut. Not locked, just shut. And the light was on. I stood there, staring at that door like it was some portal I didn't want to open. I already knew. Somewhere deep in me, I already knew. I pushed it open slowly. She was in bed. But she wasn't alone. At first, all I saw was the outline of bodies under the covers. Nothing explicit. No moaning, no movement. Just stillness. 2 people asleep in my bed. My side of the blanket folded back like an afterthought. I didn't say anything. I didn't move. I just stood there in the doorway, staring. Waiting for it to be a misunderstanding. Some trick of the eye. Maybe it was a friend. A cousin. Some completely rational explanation that made this all okay. But then I saw the jacket. A man's jacket. Hanging over the chair in the corner. Black, expensive looking. Not mine. Next to it, a pair of dress shoes. Still warm, probably. I stepped further into the room, and that's when I saw the toothbrush. A brand new toothbrush sitting on the edge of the bathroom sink. Not from our set. Different color. Different brand. Placed like it belonged there. That's what finally broke me. Not the bed. Not the glasses. Not the silence. The toothbrush. That small, stupid, undeniable sign that he'd been here before. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This was a routine. A system. A shared life growing in the shadow of mine. I backed out of the room as quietly as I'd come in. I didn't slam the door. I didn't flip the light on. I didn't demand explanations or yell or cry. I just stood in the hallway, staring at my own hands, shaking. And in that moment, something inside me shattered. Not like glass, but like paper. Quiet. Final. There was no rage. No scream. Just an overwhelming silence that told me everything I needed to know. She'd made her choice, and now I had to make mine. I walked downstairs. The wine bottle was still sitting there, mocking me. I picked it up, smelled the cork. It was one of the bottles we'd bought on that anniversary trip to Asheville 2 years ago. The bottle we said we'd save for something special. So this was special. To her, at least. I didn't throw it. I didn't smash the glasses. I just set it down gently and walked to the coat rack. Grabbed my jacket. My keys. As I reached for my wallet, I noticed the note on the counter. Her handwriting, a little crooked, rushed. Back late. Don't wait up. I laughed. Actually laughed. Just once. Dry and bitter. She wasn't even planning to explain it. Just figured I wouldn't be there to see it. Maybe she was right. I walked out the front door, closed it softly behind me, and stepped into the cool air. My car was waiting, still parked at the curb like nothing had changed. But everything had. I slid into the driver's seat, started the engine, and pulled away. Slow, steady, like I wasn't running from anything. But I was. I just didn't know what yet. I drove without thinking, through quiet neighborhoods, past gas stations, through traffic lights I didn't remember stopping at. My hands were tight on the wheel, but my mind was already somewhere else, replaying the last few months in a fast, brutal slideshow. The lies, the patterns, the excuses, they all made sense now. Every piece of doubt I tried to ignore was screaming the truth. It wasn't in my head. I wasn't paranoid. I was right. She had been lying, hiding, rewriting pieces of our life in real time. And I had been living in the echo of something that didn't exist anymore. The worst part? I didn't feel hate. Not yet. I just felt replaced. Like someone had taken my spot in the story without bothering to change the names. I didn't wake them. That was the first decision I made. Not to shout. Not to flip the lights on. Not to stand at the foot of the bed demanding answers they'd already answered by simply existing in that space together. There was nothing left to say. It was strange how calm I felt. No rage. No panic. Just silence. Cold and hollow. Like walking through an empty church after everyone's gone. I walked out of the house the same way I walked in, quietly. No door slam. No sound but the slow creak of floorboards under my feet. I got in my car and started driving, with no idea where I was headed. The roads were empty. It was that in-between time after rush hour but before the bars let out. The city caught in a kind of breathless pause. Even the stoplights felt slower. I didn't check my phone. Didn't turn on music. Just the steady rhythm of tires on asphalt and the low hum of the engine underneath me. Somewhere along the highway, I found myself heading east, toward the coast. The ocean wasn't part of any plan. It just happened. I hadn't seen it in months, maybe years, but something about it felt right. The water had always made things clearer. It was past midnight by the time I got there. The beach was empty, just dark sand, cold wind, and waves rolling in like a slow heartbeat. I parked near a lifeguard stand, pulled my jacket tight, and walked out onto the shore. There were footprints in the sand, some leading toward the dunes, others disappearing into the tide. I stood there for a long time just watching. It was like the ocean didn't care. Didn't care that my marriage had just collapsed. Didn't care that the woman I loved had let someone else into the space we built. Didn't care that I had no plan, no answers, no idea what came next. It just kept moving, steady, indifferent, infinite. I sat down in the sand and let the cold creep into my clothes. Let it anchor me. For the first time in hours, I started breathing again. I didn't cry. Not because I didn't want to, I just couldn't. There was no space left for that. My body was too busy feeling nothing. The numbness wasn't peace. It was absence. Absence of trust. Absence of certainty. Absence of her. And that was when the realization came, cold and sharp. This hadn't started tonight. The wine glasses, the jacket, the toothbrush, that was just the proof. But the end? That had big asterisk and long before. It was in the way she stopped laughing at my dumb jokes. In the way her phone started living face down. In the nights she came home later and later, smiling but tired, her eyes never quite meeting mine. It was in the space between us, the kind that builds slowly like fog on glass, unnoticeable until you're already lost in it. She had been fading away for months, and I had let her. I didn't fight for her. Not really. I kept the peace, avoided conflict, dismissed my gut, and in doing that, I left the door wide open for someone else to step in. That wasn't an excuse for what she did, but it was part of the story. And I had to own my part, too. As dawn started to crack open the horizon, I made another decision. I wouldn't give her a second chance to rewrite this. I'd seen what people do when they get caught, how suddenly the narrative twists. The cheating becomes a mistake. The other person becomes a moment of weakness. The victim becomes emotionally unavailable. I wasn't going to let that happen. I had the truth now, and I needed to hold on to it before it got diluted, softened, spun into something forgivable. Because this wasn't a one-time mistake. This was sustained, planned, repeated betrayal. It was toothbrushes and wine and lies told with a straight face. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of a confrontation. I wasn't going to let her cry into my chest and say she was confused. I wasn't going to ask why, because why didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that she did. What mattered was that she made room for someone else in the life we built together, and didn't bother to close the door behind her. By the time the sky turned from gray to pale gold, I was back in my car. I sat for a moment before starting the engine, just watching the waves erase every footprint that had been there hours before. Felt like a metaphor, but I didn't want it to. I drove back into town slowly, avoiding the main roads. I didn't want to see our neighborhood, didn't want to pass the coffee shop where we used to get Sunday muffins, or the gas station where she used to text me "need anything" when she filled up. I just needed time. Time to think. Time to collect. Time to become still before I acted. Because I knew what I had to do next. I wasn't going to throw her stuff out on the lawn. I wasn't going to text her some dramatic goodbye. I was going to take my time. Be quiet. Be deliberate. Do what she never thought I'd do. Pull the truth out from under her while she still thought she was safe. I was going to gather every receipt, every message, every login she forgot I had access to. I was going to document the truth. Because when I walked away from this, I wanted to do it with the kind of clarity that didn't leave room for regret. And when she finally woke up, tangled in lies and warm sheets that didn't belong to us, she'd find nothing left of me. Not my car. Not my keys. Not my silence. Just the air I used to breathe, now cold and empty beside her. I didn't go home that morning. Not because I was afraid, but because I knew the second I walked through that door, she'd start playing defense. Tears. Explanations. Gaslighting. She'd twist everything just enough to make me second-guess what I saw with my own eyes. And I wasn't going to give her the chance. So I went somewhere safe, a friend's place out near the edge of town. He was out of state for work and had offered the place to me before for weekends when I needed space to write or breathe. This time, I wasn't there to think. I was there to act. The first thing I did was make copies. Receipts. Call logs. Emails. All of it. I had access to our cloud storage, shared apps, and even some of her synced devices from when I helped her set them up years ago. She never changed the passwords. She never thought I'd need to. I started pulling everything. The calendar inconsistencies. The restaurant receipts. The rideshare history that didn't match her stories. GPS logs when she claimed her phone died. It all painted a picture not of one mistake but of a second life. Then came the messages. Most were gone, deleted, of course. But people forget how many places sync. Her tablet still had cached data. A few stray conversations. "I can't wait to see you again," face blowing a kiss here. He's clueless there. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Enough to tie timelines together. Enough to connect dots she thought were invisible. I didn't read every word. I couldn't stomach it. This wasn't about pain anymore. This was about documentation. So I took *TS. Dozens. Then I drafted the email. It wasn't emotional. No dramatic subject line. No passive-aggressive digs. Just a professional summary, bullet-pointed, clear and clinical. Dates, times, locations, evidence. And I didn't send it to her. I sent it to her firm's ethics office. Her contract had a strict clause about undisclosed personal relationships with consultants, especially those tied to financial or strategic operations. The man in my bed that night? He wasn't just someone she met at a bar. He was a consultant under contract with her firm. His name appeared in their quarterly vendor reports. I only knew because I helped review some of them last year, back when she used to ask for my opinion on work stuff. back when we used to be on the same team. I attached everything. No commentary, no signature, just the facts. Felt like hitting send on the truth. That evening, I drained half our joint savings account and moved the funds into a separate one. Still legal, still within my rights. I left enough in there that she wouldn't notice the withdrawal immediately. I needed time to move, to sever things cleanly before she caught on. By the next morning, her firm had already responded. A generic reply, "Thank you for your submission. This matter will be reviewed by our compliance team." Cold. Procedural. Perfect. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was seeking exposure. I wanted her to feel what it was like to lose something she took for granted. To sit in a meeting and feel everyone's eyes on her. To taste the sour panic of realizing she was no longer in control of the narrative. That evening, I turned my phone back on. 27 missed calls. 14 texts. 3 voicemails. The first message was simple. "Hey babe, where are you? You left early." The second was less casual. "Mark, I don't know what you saw, but please come home. We need to talk." By the fourth, the tone changed. "You're being unfair. You don't understand what's going on." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. She sent a picture of the bed. Our bed. Just one pillow now, freshly made, like staging a crime scene. Like that would undo what happened in it. Then came the guilt trip texts. "This doesn't have to be the end. We can fix this. I made a mistake. It didn't mean anything. You didn't even give me a chance to explain." But she'd had chances. Every night she came home with half-truths and a kiss on the cheek. Every moment she looked me in the eye and chose silence over honesty. That was her explanation. By the next afternoon, I started packing. Not her things, mine. I wasn't going to kick her out. That would have invited conflict, drama, pleading. I didn't want that. I wanted absence. My absence. I packed my clothes, my files, my tools. Everything I owned that wasn't nailed down went into the back of my car. I left the rest. The furniture, the plates, the wedding photos, all her memories of me boxed into silence. Before I left, I printed out one of the photos from her text exchanges. Just one. A blurry image of her and him at that Savannah restaurant, her hand resting on his across the table. That familiar look in her eyes. I left it on the kitchen counter under the wine glass she'd left in the sink. No note, no caption. Just that single photo face up. Let her figure out what it meant. At 5:12 p.m. That day, I got a text from a mutual friend who worked in HR at her company. "Hey, not sure what's going on, but Emma's been pulled into an internal review. Whole floor's buzzing." I just replied, "Thanks for letting me know." By the end of the week, her contract was suspended. Apparently, the consultant she was seeing had done this before, skirted disclosure policies, got a little too familiar with staff. This time, though, the evidence was undeniable. She lost the client she was managing. Then her title. Then her project. When I saw her next, days later unplanned, she looked different. Not just tired. Unsteady. She tried to talk to me in the parking lot outside the grocery store. I didn't stop walking. Didn't even look at her. She followed me for a few steps, calling my name. "Mark, please," she said, louder this time. "Can we just talk? Just for a second." I turned once, just long enough to say, "You already said enough." And then I left her there, in the middle of the parking lot, clutching her keys like a lifeline. Later, I learned he left the company too. Not fired, just gone. Vanished from LinkedIn. Disconnected number. Coward's exit. Perfect match. I moved into a short-term rental near the lake. A fixer-upper, barely furnished. But it felt clean. Honest. The air smelled like pine instead of lies. At night, I opened all the windows. Slept on a mattress on the floor. Made dinner for one. Watched the sky darken without checking my phone every 5 minutes. Wondering who she was texting. And for the first time in years, I slept through the night. Not because I was happy, but because I wasn't waiting anymore. Back in town for paperwork, I saw them, Emma and Jason, my best friend, laughing at a bar like nothing ever happened. I walked up. Jason couldn't meet my eyes. Emma just blinked like I was a stranger. In that moment, I realized the truth didn't matter to them. It never had. They'd rewritten the past, erased me from it. That night, I didn't rage. I just stood there, made them look at what they'd done. And then I walked out. Again. I exposed the truth without names. An anonymous archive of timelines, lies, and silence. It spread like wildfire. Emma was fired. Jason left town. I moved to Nashville, bought a lake house, fixed furniture by day and rode at night. No drama, just space to breathe. Rain on the roof, coffee at sunrise. In walking away without a word, I didn't lose. I freed myself. Sometimes, peace doesn't come from answers, it comes from finally stopping the questions.